All right, let's take a look at how I prepare for heritage auctions. Now, I use spreadsheets quite a bit, as you can see here, and I'm going to go through this spreadsheet in a little bit more detail. But before I go through the spreadsheet and how I calculate all of these numbers and I do all of these predictions as far as what the end bid will be, I want to show you some of the other resources that I use in conjunction with heritage auctions, as well as going through the Heritage website itself. So the Heritage website, I will argue, is not the most intuitive and user-friendly site to get around. Certainly, it's hard for me to find the current auctions and everything, but I'll show you where I find the latest, what I would call their standard weekly auction. So if we go down here to the open auction schedule, typically they'll have the Sunday, Monday comics listed somewhere, but you don't see it right away. This is they kind of highlight their premium auctions. Go down here to load more, and we're still looking for it. And once you finally load all, then we see we've got the Sunday and Monday comic book select auction. Now, the other auctions are kind of fun to watch, but this is the one that I participate in. I'd say weekly, but sometimes the budget isn't always ready for a weekly heritage auction spend. So I still take a look here, but this is the one that I kind of focus on and try to find some relative deals. So I will go ahead and click into this one. And once that loads, I will target a very specific set of books. So it could be only slabbed books, only raw books, or books by certain publishers. And you're kind of limited with some of the filters here, but the easiest thing for me to do is to filter by publisher. So down on the left-hand side, and again, if you wanted to only focus Golden Age, you'd select that and see how many books are in the auction and so on. What I like to do is, instead of getting too specific, I just search by the comic publisher. And I am more of a Marvel person, Marvel collector, than I am DC or any other publisher. And so that's kind of my focus. Honestly, it's really, for the amount of research and data that I collect and analyze, I just don't have the bandwidth to do every book in every auction every week. So I try and limit to either certain publishers or certain titles. So in here, I'm going to filter by Marvel. And now here we are only seeing the current Marvel books that are at auction, and this one is for this weekend's Sunday and Monday auction. Again, if you're just doing a search, you're going to get lots of results that you have to filter after the fact. You're going to see past auctions where the winners are accepting offers, and it's good for other historical information. But if you're just looking for what's coming up here in the next auction, then I would highly recommend navigating to the select auction and then choosing a particular filter or set of filters that lets you kind of hone in on something. Now, I certainly could have picked Bronze Age Marvel, but I'm just going to go with all Marvel. And I'll show you here why I do that. And it's basically, I can just kind of eyeball the auctions and I kind of know what I'm interested in. And my interests are more of the mainstream or highly popular books. I'm not by definition a comic book speculator. I'm not the collector that's going to take that $3.99 book and tell you why it needs to be $100 in 3 months. I'm not going to overhype or oversell or pitch you on anything. What I'm looking for are tried and true books, highly desirable, collectible books. Some people refer to them as blue chip. I don't particularly like that designation, but I like books that have a track record, that have a history. A key is a key, and it's always going to be a key when you're looking at silver, bronze, and copper age Marvel books. And so what I try and do is I try and find some of these books that we know have value that may have slipped through the cracks. And one of the things about Heritage, although you're probably yelling at me right now saying Heritage is super expensive, there's no way you get deals. There's that bidder buyer premium thing where they tack on an additional 20%. Shipping is outrageous. This is crazy. And yeah, this might not be for you, but I want to show you, as somebody who loves to get into some back issue bins and certainly look for dollar books and everything like that, I have found a way to play some chess instead of checkers over at Heritage. And, you know, a deal is a deal, even if you're spending $1 or $100 on a book. So that's kind of how I look at it, is there's always something to be had. So let's get into some of the details here. The books are listed in alphabetical order. So that's helpful to me because this is a very curated site. It's a curated auction. What I like about it is I don't mind paying a premium because I'm able to see what's in the auction, and everything is very organized and cataloged appropriately. As you know, with eBay, you're kind of not having to deal with that premium, but it's a giant pile. It's a dump of books that you have to filter and figure out where they are. So you're doing kind of online back issue bin diving. What I like about this, these are what I would consider to be sort of like wall books, and so you're looking at the wall, and you're looking at grades, and you're looking at very accurate descriptions, consistent descriptions, great for data and researching. And we'll get into this in a minute in terms of how I collect all this and catalog it in my spreadsheet. So I'm going to start with an example, a couple of examples, in using Amazing Spider-Man. This is probably in my top 3 or 5 Marvel titles, the original Amazing Spider-Man title, where I have several back issue bins full of Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm not looking to complete a run of Amazing Spider-Man by any means, but I certainly appreciate some of these books being available. These are the books as a kid that I saw on the wall for 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, and I couldn't afford them. And I like to add them and go back and add them to my collection. And Heritage is a good way to certainly hone in on some high grade quality, very presentable books. Now, if I'm going to scroll down here, we're gonna pass. I mean, here's an Amazing Fantasy 2.5 current bid. It's not going to stay at 15 grand. So what am I looking for? Am I just going to look and catalog and categorize every Amazing Spider-Man, like Amazing Spider-Man #1 in a VG 3.5 CGC slab? I'm probably going to skip that. So what I'm looking for mid-grade Silver Age to start, and that's kind of where I'll start to keep this particular video simple. I'm looking at mid-grade Silver Age, presentable, and I would say anywhere from the 3 to 6.5s. When it starts to get into the 7.0 and above, honestly, it starts to get a little bit out of my price range. So I don't mind paying a little extra if it's a highly sought after book, but I can't afford, you know, Amazing Spider-Man #1 in an 8.0. So that's really not what we're doing here. What we're doing is we're looking for those mid-grade, and I try and target raw books. What we're looking at right now is a lot of slabs, but as we scroll through these, lots of slabs, but then here's a raw book that slips in there. So if I'm looking at this as an example, let's open up the details on Amazing Spider-Man #10. So this is in a good, very good, I believe it was a 3.0 condition raw book. And you can zoom in on it. Again, I'm looking for colors. I'm looking for centering. This tear right here is certainly something that would detract from the presentation as far as I'm concerned. Now, is this an opportunity to own Amazing Spider-Man 10? Yes, but I envision someday being able to put a lot of my books on display instead of having them in my bins. I do notice some yellowing and some specks and discoloration and some other things on the front. As far as the centering goes, it does look pretty good, but that's not typically a book that I'm going to target. The 3.0 is just a little too low. Again, if I'm looking for filler in my collection and I don't care what grade it is, I'll take a low grade copy. No one has bid on this, so again, you might have the opportunity to get in there and low bid it, but that's not a book that I target. So I'm going to keep going. Here are the same book in a 5.0. 9.2 bid is already at 725. 4.5 for Amazing Spider-Man 12. You know, the CGC slabbed books are already kind of commanding a premium. So let's take a look at this one. This is kind of a book that I would target. Now, as I hovered over this, I already saw that crease that I talked about in another video. When these were sent in the mail, they typically were folded in half. There's probably not much you can do as far as a press for these. You can see the color break right down the middle. So there's a difference between finding some of these books for your collection and then being able to find presentable copies. And to me, I'm looking for presentable copies over just filler. So I'm going to keep going. A lot of slabs in this week's auction. And I don't mind bidding on slabs, but I feel like I'm going to have to take maybe a 4.0 to upwards of a 5.5 on some of these in order to get a book instead if I can't find the raw in, let's say, a 6 to a 7. So nothing really jumps out quite yet. The only thing that caught my eye here was Amazing Spider-Man 33. Now, there's a couple things with this book. Really classic, iconic cover. But here's the other thing. White pages. Now, I understand that the pages inside are not presentable in the slab, but if you can't get a 9.8 white pages of a Silver Age book, you can at least get the white pages. And that's what I kind of look at with some of these, is I'm looking for other presentation in the book, regardless of the giant number at the top. So even though this is a 5.5, it has, I would say, see if I can flip the book over. So there's no real significant miswrapping, right? The wrapping on the book is pretty good. Yes, the back has a bit of tanning on it, but from a presentation perspective, the alignment and the centering, not just of the book itself with the wrap, but also in the case, I would say it's just slightly shifted down here where it appears like it's just angled just a little, but not bad. This is a very, very presentable book. The colors look good. The water, there's really not any giant scratches or stamps or writing on the front. Like, I would be very, very proud to display this on my wall. So let's use this as an example of going through and how I would prepare to bid on a book like this. So a 5.5, right there smack in the mid-grade range. Very iconic cover. Again, like I said, I prefer to bid on raws, but in this case, just using this as an example, I'd like to bid on it. So what are your steps here? Your options are just to jump in and just give it a random bid. It looks like the current bid is $1. Most likely, if you bid $50 or $100, you might be the high bidder. But the way it works with Heritage, the real bidding actually takes place live. And so what you want to do is you want to have your data prepared ahead of time so that you can get in there and not spend too much money. So you don't want to overspend, go beyond your budget. But also, is there a way that you can actually snipe these books? And yeah, I'm talking about sniping Silver Age Marvel off of Heritage. I know it sounds crazy, but you'll see here in a moment when we start running the data, is I'm able to look and get books for, I target somewhere around 40 to 55% of GPA on raw. And, I'll move up from there depending on the book. Again, like if this was miswrapped, I probably would just put in my minimum bid and then stay away from it and just track the data. So let's look. So the first thing I would want to do is, before I start getting into putting in a lot of data entry, what does this book even go for in a 5.5? So we're looking at Amazing Spider-Man 33. So I come back to Go Collect, and Amazing Spider-Man 33 in a 5.5. Average sale, $270. Last sold on Heritage a month ago for $228, which is really not a bad price, according to Go Collect. So I'm going to leave that there. Now I'm going to go to cover price. Now, why am I going to cover price when I've talked about how I use this for raws? Well, it's exactly that. Do I want to overpay just because it has the CGC slab? So in here, the raw comic average sales, $111, according to cover price. So we're looking at $111 to $228 if it's slabbed. The next thing I'll do is I'll go into GPA. Blow this up a little bit. So 5.5 in GPA has an average, let me go back to the column header. So you've got, I really don't bother with 2019 and 2020, as we know the comic market is much different now. The 12-month average, the 90-day average, and the last sale. So it's the last three columns. I really, really look at the 90-day average and compare that to the other two to kind of, for me, decide on what is the going rate for this book. So if we scroll back down in the 5.5, the 90-day average is 276. Last sold for 228. That is that Heritage sale. And then the 12-month is 230. So somewhere in that 230 to 276 range is what I'm looking for. Now, when I look at this and I see the book is increasing in value, look at how steady this is. This is why I target these books, right? I understand that you can get, your $3 new release. You can get on Whatnot and all these things and pump it and hype it and try and get $20 for it or $50, or if it's a ratio, try and convince somebody it's worth $100. I understand that game. I don't like playing it. I feel like there's a level of dishonesty in it. I know you're trying to tell somebody that this book has a lot of value, but when you're trying to speak to intelligent and informed collectors who understand this, it does come across as insulting. And I don't know if speculators really understand how insulting they are when they're just promoting all of this. So again, I shy away from that, and I'm just looking at data. I look at numbers, I look at values, I look at stories, I look at characters, I look at significance, I look at the MCU, and I'm trying to figure out all of these things. And this particular book, I don't own this. It is a tried and true classic cover. You see this on the wall at any convention or any comic shop. You know what it is. You know it's Spider-Man. It's iconic. So this to me is in my price range, right? So a 5.5, somewhere between $200 to $300 is around what I would be willing to consider paying. Now, obviously, I want to pay less. I get that, and that's fine. So one of the things that you have to do with Heritage is you have to know when to let a book go. You can't just keep bidding because, like I've said before online, there's no shortage of comic books. You could tell me that there's a new release with a print run of 400 and this is one of 400 and it costs $1,000. It's worth $1,000. I get that, but there are other comic books. So you have to know when to get up and just pass on something. What I find with Heritage as I'm tracking this data, there's a particular Uncanny X-Men slab, 9.8. I swear it is in every weekly auction. Every week it's there. So if you miss on it one week, try again the next week. And if you miss on it again, you can try the next one. And at some point, you just let the book go because it's out of your range. But there's no shortage of comic books. There's always comic books to be had, to be enjoyed and read and collected. Okay, so back to the matter at hand. 5.5 in my price range, iconic cover. You see the jump here between a 5.5 and a 6. Is it worth it to spend twice as much money to get a 6.0 in a fine? I don't think so, especially with this one being as presentable as it is, right? And then you also have the 6.5 as a 340, and obviously it's going to go up from there. But a 5.5, let's look. Let me go back and see what a 5 is. A 5 is in the low 200s, and then you get a 4 down here below 200. I would say even a 4.5, depending on the presentation again. But I'm willing to pay a little bit more because of the presentation on this one. Okay, so now we've got a general idea. We've got 270 from Go Collect. I'd say the low end, again, this is for all grades, this 111, just to kind of give you a baseline. Typically, if I click in here and I see that the raw book average sale is like 800, I just move on to the next one. But this is a book I want to track. So how do I track it? So I go into my spreadsheet and I'm going to start a new section right here, and I'm going to copy the last one and what I do is I copy the description down here. I just take this description, and why do I do that? Again, as I mentioned earlier, Heritage consistently lists their information. So even though you see at the top, this is the entire description, I can quickly see this is Spider-Man 33. Just like you could see above from the last auction, I tracked all of these, the different X-Men that I was targeting. Then I copy the URL and paste it, and watch this value here. You see it says 14,100. As I paste this, it changes. So I have in my formula a way that it parses the URL to pull out the the lot number. So if we scroll back here, you'll see it says lot 11074. That's automatically put in there when I paste the URL. Why is that important? Because when you're bidding live and it says we're about to bid on, they don't say we're about to bid on Amazing Spider-Man 33. It says we're about to bid on lot 11,074. So you can kind of see in numerical order where the auction is. So if you're targeting a run of Amazing Spider-Man or Fantastic Four, Daredevil, X-Men, whatever the case may be, whatever the title it is that you're targeting, it's not going to be alphabetic. It's going to be by that lot number. So that's an important indicator, a unique ID for the auction. The grade I will put in by hand. I believe we said we were looking at a 5.5. And then I distinguish between raw and CGC. Now, why is this important? Because all of these values in here are driven by different things. I'm going to go ahead and update the August 1st and 2nd. So I'll just put August 1st. Okay. Based on what I put in here, it's going to alter these values, these targets, and different things. And I'll explain each column here as I go. So you can see raw. So if you watch the other values in the row, if I change it to CGC, they increase. Now, why is that? Because I'm going off of GPA in column N, and it's the GPA price at the moment that as I look at it as the value. And I will go ahead and just put that in here so we can see relative numbers to this book. So on a 5.5, I'm going to go ahead and say that it's $276. Now, why did I choose that over the 228 or 230? To me, I'm willing to put in the fact that it had a higher 90-day moving average because the book itself on Heritage was in a I would say above acceptable presentation state, meaning there was no miswrap, there was no other thing with it. So I'm going to go ahead and agree with that 276. I could middle it and say somewhere between 230 and 276 and just put 250. But again, trying to keep things consistent, I will more often use that 90-day average unless there isn't one. So down here, you see with the 4.0, there's no 90-day average. And then I see here's 184 for the 12-month, and here's 200 for the recent sale. A lot of times I'll just take that 200. I try and lean on the higher value instead of the lesser, just because my experience with Heritage, it has a particular type of collector and bidder. They're leaning towards the higher value anyway. They're expecting a higher value and expecting, a higher return. So in order to be fair and consistent, I use the higher value. So that's $276. So back in the spreadsheet, I'm going to plug in 276. You can see those numbers adjust. And then I'm also going to add the W designation under pages. So again, these numbers are going to change as soon as I type W into this field. And to me, this again is a premium. These are these hidden things in the book that in the collectible, I should say, more than the book itself. As a collectible, it's about presentation, the look of it, the significance. And white pages is it's the highest designation for page quality that CGC allows for, that it gives. So anyway, if it's not white, if it's off-white, then I just leave the numbers as they are. But because it is, you'll notice these change again, and it will go up slightly, and it's all percentage based. It's all driven off of column N and the GPA. Now, some of these other values are driven off of trends and based on what happened in previous auctions. And then I basically predict what the bid's going to end up at. So I'm predicting that the raw base bid without the buyer's premium is going to be $212.38. So as I plug in these numbers and look at my formulas, again, if I'm going to treat myself to a mid-grade Silver Age book, $212 for Amazing Spider-Man 33, last sold for $228. If that's what it's predicting, I'm going to track this book. I'm going to try and seek it out. Again, once the auction begins and you start seeing the bid go over 200 and it's going into 250, 260, 270 range, I back out. I just get out of it. I'm only looking to win at an auction at a price that's reasonable for me. Obviously, we all want to buy low, sell high, or get a good deal. That's sort of part of what makes us comic book collectors. But I'm trying to pay a reasonable price. Now, you have to be careful because column M is actually what you're paying to Heritage, right? So 212 on a bid means you're actually paying $254.86. However, it's still less than GPA. Again, if you're telling yourself, well, I don't think 276 was the right value, you can certainly change it to 228, but watch what happens when the book sells for over 200. So I'm telling you, these bidders are savvy. They know what's going on. And you could say, well, why don't I just go to eBay? Okay, well, let's take a look then. Let's go to eBay. Let's take a look then. Let's go to eBay and search for Amazing Spider-Man 33 in a CGC 9.8. And let's go down to sold. Now this is going to be a mixture. Let's see if we can... And this is one thing I don't like about eBay, right? I don't even see the book. Not even on there. It's somewhere in there. So difficult to find, first of all. Is it even there? And I give up. So it could be available on eBay. I could watch it. That's another thing that I do is I do try and do a little comparison shopping throughout the week before the auction begins on Sunday, just to see if there's an opportunity to get it elsewhere. But this is kind of the going rate. This is what it's going for. So let me explain the other columns, and then I'll put in some other data as we go along, just to kind of give you a kind of an idea of why I may or may not target a book and what are my next steps at Heritage. So the first thing is column G is what I would call a pre-bid, and what I mean by that is when bidding opens up at Heritage, you're able to quote unquote bid on a book, but really the bidding doesn't start until the item is put up for auction live on Sunday or Monday. But you can go ahead and put something in there to get your bid in early. Almost, unless you're going to bid like 300 off the bat, you're not going to win this item for $74.61. I can guarantee you that. But what I like to do is put it into Heritage because it adds that book as a book that I'm tracking, a book that I bid on. And so I'll get updates throughout the week as far as, is my $74 bid holding up? How many bids are on the book? And some people might say that's a waste of time because you're going to drive up the price on a book that you have. I can understand that point of view, but I'm telling you, it doesn't really matter because it's going to go up above $74 anyway. And then you'd say, well, why don't you just bid $212 because that's what you think it's going to go for? To me, that is inflating the price. So you want to have something reasonable, just some entry-level bid, and that lets you and Heritage know that you're interested in the book, and then it adds to your tracking. So there's a whole bunch of books that you're tracking, and you can see them all at a glance. So that's what this does. It's like a track item, so to speak. Column H is my bid target. So I would love nothing more than to get that book for $186.51. To me, that would be ideal. And what I have found is that when I track the books this way, and I go through and track maybe somewhere between 20 and 50 books per week, that I'm able to win about one auction. And when I win, it is close to my target. But the trick is spending the time and spending the research and putting in the work to get it to win that auction, to find that auction. You're not going to get it just going to Heritage Auctions and say, I'll just wing it and I'll just have GPA open off to the side. That's not how it works. You're going to end up overpaying for books and so on. Again, that's with the buyer's premium of a $223.82. So that's all calculated here in my formula. So I can see even at $186, that's not exactly what I'm spending. It does not include shipping. So you do have to be careful in that regard. But still, if you're comparing H and I to N in the columns, it's still below the GPA. It's still below that 90-day average. Now, column J, extremely important. I've colored it red. This is the amount that you have to be careful of, because if you bid more than $242.88 with the buyer's premium, you're actually going above GPA. Now, I have other examples above where the bid max is under GPA, like well under GPA. Well, why is that? It's because the book is raw, or it's the book is CGC but not white pages. Because it's CGC slabbed and it's a white page designation, I'm allowing for that maximum to creep up a little bit and allow for the buyer's premium to go over. Now, this would be a rare case where I'm really, really after a particular book and I'm willing to pay for it and I want it even if I'm overpaying slightly, but I even now have to set my limitations and understand what I'm getting myself into. So I like to have the what I would call the minimum, which is column G, the maximum, column J, and then somewhere in the middle is my target, and then what I'm actually predicting. So really for me, the range would be 186 to 212. That's kind of the range that I'm living in terms of the, again, the raw bid without the buyer's premium. And that's my target range. And I would feel very, very comfortable owning this book having paid somewhere between 186 and 212. So that's what I do in terms of modeling the numbers. And how do I arrive at these projections and everything like that? Well, that I may have to go into detail in another video and break that down. So if you're interested in more information, you really want to see what are these formulas like, leave some comments and give me some feedback. Let me know that you're interested in this types of data and analysis, and I can show you how I run the numbers. Some other things that I will do here rather quickly, love them or hate them. I love them. So if I go to Mile High, and I think that actually I may have anywhere in the title, view alphabetically. I think the mile is just Spider-Man begins with Spider-Man. Yep, right there. So what I'll do here, just to do some comparison, I will search for this book on Mile High Comics, just to kind of see what we're dealing with. And right here, I understand this is not a current price, so it's sold out. 563 for a very good, 848 for a fine. I'm somewhere in the middle. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and plug in a number. So let's just give it 563 as a very good. And then right now they're doing a 50% discount. Let's see, it's a 4.0. So that Mile High price is actually $281.50, which, I understand GPA is for slabbed, Mile High is raw. So the GPA to me is you could say it's either undervalued or under market price. Not really though. I think it's just more Mile High being over. But this is another situation where I'll do a little comparison shopping just to see. And I understand it's out of stock, but again, I'm looking at all angles. So if Mile High were to get this in stock at a very good, at a 4.0, 5.0, their grading isn't precisely what CGC's grades are, then what I'll do is I'll just do a rough guess, a rough estimate here, and again, just ballpark it and see what they would list the book for sale. So again, if this were, let's say, 181, I'd be a little skeptical paying something like $254 for a book that, if they get it in stock, is going to be $180. Because I could certainly just buy it from Mile High, send it into CGC for, $20, $25, $30 to have it graded, and I'd be able to make a profit that way. So what this does, honestly, bottom line, it just gives me a little bit of reassurance that the price range here, this 186 to 212, that it's okay. It's within my range, that I'm comfortable with that price. Now, lastly, the other columns here, and this will be a follow-up video after the auction, but the final bid, actual GPA, these are the values that I plug in after the fact. I didn't do it last time, but I'm going to do it on the August 1st auction. And I plug these in real time so that I can see the trend of the current auction as far as, are books going for less or more. It really depends on who's participating. I haven't participated in heritage auctions in a couple of weeks, so I'm one less participant. You don't know what kind of whales and sharks are out there that are participating or not. Are they doing this kind of analysis every week? Maybe, maybe not. So if it's trending up, like whoever's in this auction, the audience is overpaying, then I will adjust those numbers accordingly, and these projections will also adjust. So I'll take like the last couple of auctions along with the current auction using live real data, and that will start to adjust these two columns here, column L and M. And so then I can kind of see if the projection is going down, it's trending down from the original projection, then I should be ready to pounce on the book. All right, so that is all for this. This is how I get ready for Heritage. I'm going to do some more videos, I think, later in the week as I fill out the spreadsheet with data, so you can see some of the trending analysis that I do and some other books that I'm targeted. If you're interested in this book, please don't bid on it another week, because I will probably try and jump in there and get it. But it's worth sharing, kind of my approach to it and letting you know what books I'm targeting in an auction, because I think it's valuable details. I think we're all trying to get the best deal. We're all trying to not overpay for books, and Heritage is a great resource for some really classic, great comic books to add to your collection. That's it. Happy collecting. See you next time.